Welcome to Digging Deeper, the Timeless Values Modern Experience Campaign virtual series. Tonight, we're airing the second episode in this 5-part series. And again, I'll answer your questions at the end of the presentation. I'm Jerry Fleagle, President and CEO of the Hoover Presidential Foundation. Just enter them anytime in the question and answer feature found at the bottom of your screen. The series continues next Tuesday and Thursday evening with episodes 3 and 4, where we'll look at in-depth at how the campaign will go about raising the funds needed, and we'll talk with a tax attorney about the most effective ways to give to maximize your benefits tax-wise. We'll record each session and post them on the Timeless Values website if you miss one of those of interest. Tonight's episode is called Reimagining the Museum. I was able to chat with Matt Solari, Vice President and Creative Director for BRC Imagination Arts in Burbank, California. He will share the thought process behind developing the renovation project and the impact it will have on our visitors. Immediately following our talk, I'll come back and take your questions about the project. So let's take a look at what Matt has in store for us.
Welcome to the second installment of our series detailing the Timeless Values Modern Experience campaign for the renovation of the Hoover Presidential Library and Museum. Hi, I'm Jerry Fleagle, President and CEO of the Hoover Presidential Foundation, and we're glad to have you here today. In part 1, Hoover Presidential Library Director Tom Schwartz and I explored how the library got its start and what the current needs are. Today, we're joined by Matt Solari of BRC Imagination Arts in Burbank, California. BRC is well known for bringing ideas and imagination to life, and they'll be doing just that at the Hoover Presidential Museum. Welcome, Matt. So let's discuss how we're going to do this project.
Hi, Jerry. Thank you for having me. Yeah, I'm very excited to talk about this. When you first asked BRC to be a part of this project, we didn't really know too much about Herbert Hoover, probably the same as most people. And the more we learned, the more we were astonished, the more we got excited by the possibilities. And what we became passionate about was we were really excited about, the objectives of this renovation to give people a chance to rediscover one of our most extraordinary leaders. It's astonishing what Herbert Hoover's legacy is that most people don't know, and how he embodies these qualities that we kind of need most to remember, right? Qualities of vision and optimism and courage and enterprise. I mean, the man had boundless energy and determination, and also and fortitude, and his compassion, which led to his sort of second life as a humanitarian and civil servant and president. So we're really excited about giving people an opportunity to rediscover Hoover and to bring the museum experience into a more modern, engaging, emotional experience for people. Because Hoover's scholarship has evolved and deepened over the years, and just as his scholarship and consideration of his life and presidency has been reconsidered, we want to modernize the museum experience through emotional storytelling and immersion.
Well, and emotional storytelling is a great point, because one of the things that I think so often with Herbert Hoover is we get so wrapped up in the millions of people that he saved from starvation, and we talk big in numbers, and really Herbert Hoover's story is one of an emotional and storytelling roller coaster, isn't it?
It is. As storytellers, that's what we do first and foremost. When we started to uncover his story, we could not believe it. You could not write this. People would not believe it today. He has the all the makings of like some sort of fictional character, but he lived and he really did these things and changed the world in the course of so many millions of lives in the process. And so what we wanted to do is, we want to bring that emotion to guests. In a traditional museum experience, it's largely about like conveying information and themes and things like that. But when you all came to us, you kind of knew that we were emotional storytellers, and you kind of knew that it would be a good match, and it's true. So we want to bring out the inherent emotion and drama in the life of Herbert and his wife Lou, and the highs and the lows, the challenges that they went through, and really connect that with the heart of the guests that are going to come through the experience. Make it a really immediate experience. Instead of something that feels like it happened, 3/4 of a century ago, almost a century ago, really making it feel now and current, like you're a part of it. So like a great movie or a novel, letting the experience unfold around you in a series of chapters that build upon another until you get to your great climax, and make them a part of the story, make them active participants in it, both emotionally and physically. It's a different kind of museum experience.
Well, I know, and of course, library director Tom Schwartz has, he's often said, he says the best museum experience is when you walk around the corner to the next exhibit or the next gallery, is what you think you're going to expect, and it turns out differently on there. And I think you do a lot of that in this story, in this concept design.
Yeah, we do. And fortunately too, like I said, his life and achievements really lend themselves well to it. So that's the great thing about a museum, is that, and the challenge too, is that there's no artistic license in a museum. And so sometimes it's a real challenge to figure out how to take the subject of a museum and make it emotional, make it engaging and dramatic for people. There was no such problem here. In fact, we had the opposite problem, which is how do we edit, right? And still make the main storyline come through, to make the main mission of the museum evident throughout the entire experience. So that was a wonderful challenge to have, which was how to edit things down.
Well, one of the unique things that we have in the design is how you actually open the visitor's experience in the Figge Auditorium. Would you want to tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah. So traditionally in a presidential museum, you start off with an orientation film that is kind of it's just conveying some information about the museum you're about to walk through, the logistics, and what the galleries are going to be like, what you're going to find in there. So it's kind of like a directory almost, or just a general highlight, like maybe something you might see on the History Channel or something. And that's a fairly standard orientation film. But we thought we have an opportunity here with taking some inherent qualities from Hoover's life and the life of adventure and the astonishing journey that he and Lou took. So we thought, okay, what if instead of an orientation film, what if we put it on steroids and made it like this trailer to an amazing adventure film, which is life is very much like that. So the goal is to through this fast-paced series of vignettes and interviews and raising questions, about situations that Hoover finds himself in. How is he going to meet these challenges, right? Well, once we pique your curiosity and kind of get your blood pumping like a great trailer does, then we want guests to walk out of that introductory film and say, I've got to find out more. I've got to see what happens. So we're really kind of turning some of the traditions of presidential museums and museums in general, and just kind of twisting the dial a little bit, right? And really turning them on their head a little bit. I'm very excited about that film.
Well, I think we are too. I can remember when you first started talking about it, is the eyebrows went up in the room, and it's like, I don't think anybody had ever thought of that. And it's like, wow, this could really be impactful and so forth, and be very good. So, Matt, maybe if you could talk a little bit about, obviously we don't want to give all the details. We only got just a short amount of time, but how the experience
we've got a fairly small square footage in the library, and we're going to renovate all of it, or in the museum portion on there. Talk about a little bit how we're going to get the visitor immersive in that, and some of the, maybe a glimpse of what they might be looking for or seeing.
Sure. We are going to squeeze every ounce of goodness out of every square footage we can in that place. And again, it is a larger story than you have the footprint to really tell, but through immersion and through what I would say would be theatrical storytelling, engaging all of the senses, we're able to immerse guests, I think, through the story and squeeze every ounce of goodness we can out of the space that you have. One of the things that was also fascinating about Hoover is that he was a modernist. He loved technology. He loved enabling technology so that it would unleash prosperity and potential. And the museum experience is going to reflect that quality of Hoover as well, bringing in technology, not as a way to just showcase the technology itself. When we bring in technology, it is always at the service of the story. And you, the guest, may never even see the technology, but it will serve to create the story around you, either through projection or theatrical lighting or surprises, right? So it becomes this physical and immersive discovery as you go through. Some of my favorite moments that we're going to be creating are when we take guests inside Herbert Hoover's emotional world, like when he was a child and he was orphaned and living with relatives, and he found solace in books. They became his window to the world and how he kind of survived, which is kind of interesting because then he ended up having a life of adventure. Well, we use technology to bring his imagination to life around you, right? So you can see, what he's feeling, what he's thinking, and then we propel you into those adventures that he's dreaming about, because then his life becomes that. We immerse you in when he goes to Australia and begins his career as one of the great miners of the age. And when he was a lad of like 20 something years old, he was supposed to have been 35, and he grows a mustache so he can look older and get in. But we immerse you in those, the mines where he found his fame and fortune. And then when he ends up traveling the world for decades, becoming the doctor of sick minds, they call him. We immerse you in a period travel office that you get to take these journeys with them around the world. And then you're there when World War I breaks out, and the chaos that happens around you reflects the chaos that was happening in the world. And perhaps one of the more interesting pieces of theatrical storytelling and immersion that I'm really excited about bringing to life is his presidency. And in a typical presidential museum, you're mostly going to get a story of a person's presidency. Hoover has such an interesting life and lives. It really is a biography of his whole amazing life that leads up to his presidency. But here we're going to give the presidency immediacy and new life, and you'll have the opportunity to certainly explore all the intricacies of what was happening around him with the Great Depression. But one of the things that also I think people don't realize about Hoover is they think of him as somebody that just kind of sat back and let things happen, which is the farthest thing from the truth. The man probably knew more about what was happening than most people in the world, and there still was so much that people didn't know. But of all the people in the world that knew what was going on, he probably knew the most and still couldn't get a handle on it. But he tried his best, and he worked himself almost to utter exhaustion by the end of his 4 years of his presidency. And we want to bring that sense of commitment and tireless dedication, and science and studied thinking. Like really, he really thought deeply about what the problems were and brought experts around him to figure it out. And we want to bring that to life for people in a way that really is visceral, right? You can go also and study it in a more academic way. We give you that opportunity, but really bringing to life the sense of what he calls the war on 1,000 fronts was the way he described the dealing with the Great Depression and the financial collapse. That wasn't just America; it was the world. So that's the thing I'm really excited about bringing to life for people, and they'll see Hoover's presidency in a completely different way. And they will feel it in a completely different way. So that's a teaser, I think, of what people can expect when they come to West Branch and to the revitalized Presidential Museum. So excited about it.
Well, we are really looking forward to it, and I'm glad you touched on the presidency because, I call it war on 1,000 fronts. I don't think people realize all the things that he was facing all at the same time on there, and so it would really be a chance to put, I call a guest actually in the president's own experience on that. So
yes,
Should
absolutely.
be a terrific part of the museum. I know I'll be looking forward to on that. So, so maybe if you could discuss, and I know we're gonna come up on a time constraint, but if you could maybe discuss two things that we could hope visitors will take with them after they visit the renovated Hoover Presidential Museum.
Yeah, and I think I already gave one of them away, which is the experience that the BRC team had when we started working with you all, which is I had no idea. I did not know that, right? The sense of you're discovering Hoover almost for the first time, and not just Herbert Hoover, but First Lady Lou Hoover as well. Also an astonishing and transformative figure in terms of the role of First Lady, and also as a civic and civil servant as well for herself and the work that she's done with women and girls. So that's the first thing, which is I did not know that. And I want people, especially Iowans, to walk out of there feeling so proud, because there's so much of the Iowa just way of being and way of looking at the world that is so much a part of Herbert Hoover, and how he was able to take that with him, and it stayed with him all of his life. All those values were things that guided him even through his toughest time. So that's the first thing. And then we also want people, one of the larger visions that we had when we thought about this is, I think Herbert Hoover would be very proud of using his story as a vehicle for people to re-engage the sense of community and public service, which he and Lou Hoover are extremely passionate about. So we want to inspire people through their story to become active participants in their community in some way, big or small, doesn't matter, but to turn your attention from, and this is a perfect time to do it too, coming out of this pandemic that we've been in. How do we re-engage with each other? How do we re-engage our civic responsibility to each other? And the story of Herbert and Lou Hoover, we want to use as that catalyst to inspire people to do that.
Well, that's one of the things that I am really looking forward to, because it will be unlike most museum experiences where it'll almost be a call to action for people, and they'll come out on an emotional high, and hopefully then we can make a change in effect going forward, which I can't help but think Herbert Hoover would be most proud of.
Absolutely. He led his entire life making the world a better place, and he lived that example, and we want to share that example with everybody that walks through the door.
Well, very good. Well, again, thank you, Matt, for spending some time with us today. We are so excited about working with BRC and with you and the team, and we can't wait to get started, and really look forward to it.
So are we. Thank you so much, Jerry.
As you can see, this is not a quick fix update to a few displays. It's a major undertaking that will cost upward of $20 million to bring the stories of Herbert Hoover's life and ideals up to today's standards. Your support is important and will make an impact in sharing the Hoover story. If you'd like to learn more about this effort, or would like to make a gift to the Timeless Values Modern Experience campaign, visit timelessvaluescampaign.org.
Well, again, that presentation was taped earlier on there. I would point out it's interesting is Matt and also his team came out from BRC Imagination Arts, and they're out of Los Angeles, California. And they made 2 trips to Iowa. Their last one was on March 6th, 2020, exactly 1 week before everything started shutting down with the pandemic. But they carried through, and actually that was their presentation, and we chose them shortly after that. They were able to perform everything, the concept design, everything via distance. In fact, they haven't been back to West Branch since. Not that we wouldn't love to have them come, but they were so dedicated and flexible. We were really happy to work with them. So anyway, questions. I've got a couple questions, and if you got any more, please feel free to type them in the Q&A comment box there on your screen. First question I got is why didn't you choose a company from Iowa to do this? And it's a great question. Frankly, we always try and look locally as far as for companies to do business with. But for a concept design for a presidential library museum, one of the things that's very important is we wanted to make sure we get it right. As we talked about before, the last time we renovated was 1992, nearly 30 years ago on there. And so we did a comprehensive study on there with 9 different firms. We brought in, narrowed it to 6, did interviews, brought 4 in for final interview, and BRC was one of them. And all 4 we felt would give us a good museum. BRC, we really felt strongly as the committee went through their due diligence and felt that they would give us a great museum. And as you can see, I think some of those things will really come through. BRC Imagination Arts had done one previous presidential museum, and that being the Lincoln Presidential Museum in Springfield, Illinois. And if you haven't been there, frankly, I'd encourage you to go. They did a terrific job, and it's a terrific story. And it's not really that far from Iowa. Another question that I have is so how will you address Hoover's presidency on there? Will you shy away from any hard questions? And I would say no, absolutely not. I think one of the things that I think the present museum exhibit does a pretty good job on there, and this one will even take it up some more notches. In essence, I think the goal for BRC Imagination Arts is what, as they design, I call the portion of the museum that will address Hoover's presidency, is I think Matt, his words were, it was war on 1,000 fronts. And that's really Herbert Hoover's words. And that's what it was, is he felt just, there was so much going on. It was not only just the United States that was in a depression, it was a worldwide depression. So there wasn't a lot of places to turn for help, had to figure it out yourself and use all the resources you could. And so one of the things that we will do is actually try and put our guest in Herbert Hoover's place during his presidency and see how it feels and how you would react. So we're going to do that. We've also got another module of our project that we're doing called the Uncommon Island Center, and we're hopeful that we can actually get some simulations that would, one of them that we're looking at would be with Hoover's presidency. So you would be actually put in the place and see how it would all play out. Let's see, I don't have a question, but I do have a chat. See if I can find that here. Just a second. Let's see here. I'm not seeing it now. Anyway, so again, this will be an exciting project, and I think well worth your time on that. So basically, that's all we have time for questions for tonight. And I'd like to thank our guest, Matt Solari from BRC Imagination Arts, for some great information. And thank you too for you all joining us tonight. Please register for episode 3. It's a process which airs on Tuesday night, May 10th at 6 p.m. Monday McCarty, the Foundation's Vice President of Development, and I will look at how Timeless Values Modern Experience campaign hopes to achieve our fundraising goals. Now, recordings of these programs can be found at the timelessvaluescampaign.org in the home drop-down menu at the In the News link. That's all we have time for tonight. Be sure to visit the timelessvaluescampaign.org to learn even more about this project. And thank you again for participating in this effort.